Welcome to today's class, everybody. Yesterday's class on Gurvastakam. Does anyone have any questions or comments in relation to that class?
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, Hare Krishna. Will we get the purports of the, what you said, will we get the purports, Mataji? Will we get the material?
Do you want them?
Yes, Mataji, if possible.
Yeah, so I can send them to Vrajanendra Prabhu, and he can forward them on to you if you want to. That's fine.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Anyone else have anything they want to ask or add? Okay, so today we're going to look into Lord Narasimha Prayers. First, just a little bit from the Nectar of Devotion. In the Nectar of Devotion, there's these devotional principles that Rupa Goswami describes, and one we're going to discuss, there's a short one we're going to discuss today, is called Reciting Notable Prayers. And tomorrow when we do Tulsi prayers, we're going to look at the prayers of submission, so that we can properly understand the mood of the prayers. It's not that we need to go into too much of it, but if we understand the mood of our prayers when we're praying, then that will be much better for us. So there are so many Acharya's prayers. Let me read from Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion. According to great learned scholars, the whole Bhagavad Gita consists of many authorized prayers, especially in the 11th chapter, where Arjuna prays to the universal form of the Lord. Similarly, Gautamiya Tantra, all the verses are called prayers. And again in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are hundreds of prayers to the Lord. So a devotee should select some of these prayers for his recitation. In the Skanda Purana, the glories of these prayers are stated as follows. Devotees whose tongues are decorated always with the prayers to the Lord are always given respect, even by great saintly persons and sages. And such devotees are actually worshipped by the demigods. So it's not that we're asking something for the demigods. And Prabhupada explains that we're worshipped by the demigods. Means that if we offer notable prayers, then we become respected by the demigods. So the reason we like to go for our Acharya's prayers, we of course will pray for ourselves according to our understanding, but when we also learn the Acharya's prayers, we learn the proper mood of prayer, and this will benefit us greatly. Prabhupada would always criticize when the Christians will pray in their daily prayer, "Oh Lord, give us our daily bread." He said, well, Krishna's already supplying everything that we need. He's supplying everything for the smallest ant. He's supplying everything for the biggest elephant. So why would he not supply for his devotees? So Prabhupada is very critical of that mood, that we just straight away ask for something. Rather, sometimes we do ask the Lord for something, but there's a way to do it, how we first glorify the Lord, and then seek with the proper attitude that if you so desire. So we'll get to that in this prayer. I'm just going to read now from when Prabhupada introduced this prayers. Let me read from, this is from, also from Prabhupada Lilamrita. This comes from the 3rd volume. It's from San Francisco in 1967. This was after Prabhupada had that small heart attack. Prabhupada's left side was paralyzed. He asked that a picture of his spiritual master be put on a wall in front of him. Thinking that Prabhupada was preparing to leave his body and wanted to meditate at the last moment on his spiritual master, Achyutananda taped it to the door facing Prabhupada. The devotees entered the front room of the apartment, and Prabhupada told them to chant Hare Krishna. And then he told them to pray to his form of Lord Narasimha. Satswarup Goswami remembers, Swamiji said we should pray to Lord Narasimha, and the prayer should be, my master has not finished his work. At different times, he would allow us to take turns and massage different parts of his body. Then he had us all go downstairs and hold kirtan through the night. And Jadharani remembers, he taught us the prayers to Lord Narasimha. He said the words one by one and I wrote them down. I called up the temples in San Francisco and Montreal, and told them the prayer. Swamiji said, you should pray to Krishna that my spiritual master has not yet completed his work, so please let him finish. Damodar remembers, I went to the temple. No one was downstairs, so I sat down to chant. Devotee came looking very disturbed, and I asked what was going on. When he told me, I rushed upstairs. Everyone was just sitting around in the second room, where they could see into Swamiji's room through a window in the wall. They were all chanting on their beads. Jadharani was handing out little slips of paper with writing on them. Swamiji, she explained, wanted us to chant these prayers. Ramananda, we brought the painting of Lord Narasimha into Swamiji's room, and we were all chanting. Then Swamiji had to use the bedpan in front of Lord Narasimha's painting, and he begged forgiveness from Lord Narasimha. He could understand that Lord Narasimha was sitting right in front of him. I saw it as a painting, but Swamiji saw it as Lord Narasimha himself. It was getting worse. Prabhupada with total weakness. I couldn't get a doctor because it was Memorial Day and everyone was closed. I even called my family doctor, but he wasn't in. Everyone had gone on vacation because on Memorial Day, everyone leaves the city. I couldn't get anyone. I was calling hospitals, doctors, this and that, but I couldn't get anyone. Finally, I got a doctor calling an emergency number for New York Medical Department. The doctor came. He was an old geezer with a real loud voice. When he saw Swamiji, he said, I think the old man is praying too much. I think he should get some exercise. He should go out for a walk in the morning. Achutananda says, the doctor didn't know very much. He said Swamiji had a cold. I said, what do you mean? His heart is palpitating. The doctor said, I don't know. Does he take whiskey? I said he doesn't even drink tea or coffee. Oh, very good. Then I think he's just got a cold. So we'll skip some of this. You'll get this all later. So Swami actually had a mild heart attack, and he ended up getting taken to Beth Israel Hospital. So they taught the prayers Srila Prabhupada taught the prayers with this mood, that my master has not finished his work. Now, one thing in that story that's interesting lesson for us is that this was the doctor who said to Srila Prabhupada, I think he should go for a walk. So immediately after that, Prabhupada started his morning walks. So before that time, Prabhupada was just sitting and chanting in the morning. But after this doctor, who wasn't even qualified, who didn't even give proper advice, but Prabhupada always gave the story that you will always take gold from a dirty place, and you will always take good advice from someone even who's not qualified if it's good advice. So this doctor said Prabhupada should go for a walk. So from then he started his morning walk, and he carried that out every day, right through the rest of his time on this planet. He was going for this morning walk every morning, no matter where he was. So that was a nice example for us. Once Radhakund Mataji told me that Srila Prabhupada had told him that two things saved his body. One was the morning walk, and the other one was his massage, because he'd also always regularly get the massage. Now, let's get back to Lord Narasimha Prayers. So I just want to, so this is one example of praying to Lord Narasimha because Prabhupada wanted something. So one thing is he was wanting to finish the job he came for, the work he came for, his service to his spiritual master. And because he was having trouble with his health, he asked the devotees to pray for Lord Narasimha. So the mood that he did so was not demanding Lord Narasimha to protect him, But if he so desires, we want to be able to serve us. So I'm reading this quote from Indra Jumnaswamy from one of his videos. He says, we pray to Lord Narasimha Dev to protect us, so that we can have time to become Krishna conscious. It takes time to become pure devotee of the Lord, and there are many dangers in this world. So we ask Lord Narasimha Dev to watch over us and protect us, so that we may use our time wisely and become pure devotees. We ask him to remove those most difficult things to remove from our heart, the anarthas like lust, anger, and greed. And Srila Prabhupada, when he gave us the Narasimha Prayers in the 1970s, he said our worship of Lord Narasimha Dev in particular, we pray to him to protect our spiritual master and to protect the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So many things are there in these prayers. So what I wanted to talk about was this, before we go into Narasimha Prayers themselves, is this idea of praying, asking people to pray for us or praying for others. What I'm taking some notes from is from an article by Urmila Mataji in Back to Godhead in October 2010. She describes that often she was aware that people would ask her, please pray for me. Sometimes she even asked others to pray. A few days before Sridhar Swami, the ISKCON leader, whose samadhi is in Mayapur, left this world several years ago, I asked him if I could do anything for him. He requested me to research and write about praying for others, which in technical terms is called intercessory prayer. So many people say, will you pray for me or I'll pray for you? But do they really mean it? Do they do it? And what's the Shastric reference for this type of prayer? So the first story that Amala talks about is that of Uttara. So at the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, there was hardly anyone left alive. Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya, was alive. He was the son of a very great guru, a great guru and a great general. So he learned things from his father, but he hadn't learned them thoroughly and he hadn't learned the right mood. And he was on the Duryodhan side, so he was against the Pandavas. So he wanted to kill all of the Pandava dynasty to wipe out his opposition. So he killed the Pandavas' 5 sons who were lying sleeping in bed, which is very abominable etiquette, especially in those days for a Kshatriya. The Kshatriyas in those days had such a culture that they could fight during the daytime, but in the evening time after the sun went down, there would be no fighting. And in fact, the two sides would get together and enjoy a meal and some talking together. So to actually come and kill someone in their bed was very abominable behavior. And so more than that, he knew how to cause an abortion using a brahmastra. Mataji uses that word, causing an abortion. So she threw the weapon at Uttara's womb, because at that time, the unborn child in Uttara's womb is the last surviving member of the dynasty after the Pandavas. So this was, of course, Maharaj Parikshit. So her prayers are very, very famous. It is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 8th chapter, 9th and 10th verse. This first one I'll read the Sanskrit as well, because it's a well-spoken verse. Uttaro vacha. Pahi pahi mahayogin deva deva jagatpate nanyam tvad abhayam pasye yatra mrityu parasparam. Uttara said, O Lord of Lords, O Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. So here we see a very nice mood to pray to Lord Krishna. She's saying she's taking shelter of Krishna because there's nobody else in this whole material world who can protect her. So therefore he is the person worthy of seeking protection from. And the next verse, I'll just read the translation. "O my Lord, you are all-powerful. A fiery arrow is coming towards me fast. My Lord, let it burn me personally, if you so desire, but do not let it burn and abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord." So this is another thing we see often in the devotees. They will suffer discomfort themselves, but they will always pray for someone else. We will come later the week and also pray for ourselves. So Krishna entered the womb and protected Maharaj Parikshit, and also Uttara was fine after that as well. So other prayers is praying for others. After Hiranyakashipu had, after Lord Narasimha had killed Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad Maharaj asked the Lord to give mercy to his father, even though his father did abominable things. Another person is Ambarish Maharaj, prayed that his would-be murderer, Durvasa, be excused. And when Kaliya's snake attacked Krishna, his wives paid for his release. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela also, there's an example of Vasudev Datta, an associate of Lord Chaitanya, who offered to take all the sinful reactions of all the people in the universe so they could attain bhakti and go back to Godhead. So all these people are praying for others in our scriptures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Yashoda Mai, Krishna's mother, would often pray for her son's protection. So praying for others is well established in our Shastras. So we have to understand the mood of that prayer. If we're asking God for something, we should want to know how to ask for it nicely. She writes, prayer to God could be considered an inherently pure activity, but the intent or mood affect the purity of the prayer. So those who offer prayers for others should consider their own motives. We don't want to try to use God as our servant. We often pray for others to get them to relieve someone of suffering. And you'll often find that if you're on a group of devotees, they'll say, please pray for somebody who's got coronavirus, please pray for somebody who's got a heart attack, who's had a car accident. And so we have to understand our mood of prayer. Due to the law of karma, people suffer a reaction of their sinful activities. So therefore, this suffering is ordained by Krishna or his agents. So are we actually trying to ask God to change his plan for the universe? This is a hypothetical question Urmila asks. She says, no, we are simply trying to develop our natural relationship of dependence on him. So if we turn to Krishna as Uttara did, oh Krishna, you are the most worthy, you're the only one worthy to take shelter of, so I am taking shelter of you, then that's a way to develop our relationship of dependence on him. Another thing that she brings up is that praying for others focuses our attention on Krishna rather than thinking of ourselves. Because if we all just keep making plans of how we can fix things, we are thinking that we're the controllers and we can do things. But if we turn to Krishna or Lord Narasimha for prayer, then we're seeking a dependent position and we're asking for help. Praying for others also develops selflessness. Those who pray to others in a mood of pure love know that everything is up to him. It is not the volume or intensity of prayer that changes a situation. It is Krishna and his will. So we can pray to Krishna, but we know everything is up to him, and it's up to him to decide whether to change his plan or not. So those who pray for others, therefore, would best think, whatever you want, my dear Lord, everything is good. Examples of prayers. So Prabhupada would often pray for his devotees. He would include that, including prayers for health or prosperity, but always in the context of doing devotional service. Another example of asking others to pray for us, King Parudra in Puri asked many devotees to beg Lord Chaitanya to grant him a meeting. Prabhupada would sometimes ask his disciples to pray for recovery from disease so he can finish his spiritual master's mission. And if we ask others to pray for us, it's out of a feeling of humility, that we think that others' prayers will be more valuable or more listened to by Krishna than our own. So Prabhupada in 1967 wrote a letter to Sri Krishna Pandit. This was at that time. I came here to America with a great mission to execute my spiritual master's order, but my heart is stabbing me. If I die in this condition, my mission will remain unfulfilled. Please therefore pray to Prabhu Lord Chaitanya and Vrindavan Bihar Krishna to rescue me this time. My mission is not yet finished. Prahlad Maharaj prayed for his father. O my Supreme Lord, my father directly blasphemed your Lordship, the spiritual master of all living beings, and committed heavily sinful activities directed against me. I wish that he be excused for all these sinful activities. King Ambarish Maharaj, I wish that this Brahmana Durvasa be freed from the burning caused by the Sudarshan Chakra. Shamak Rishi prayed to pardon his immature son, who caused the snakebird threat to Maharaj Parikshit. At least once, O Master, tolerate an offence committed by his child or subject. O Supreme Soul, this is the prayers of Kaliya. Kaliya's wives, you should forgive our foolish husband Kaliya. Now, examples from Srila Prabhupada's prayers. In Prabhupada's letters, he would often offer prayers. I pray to Krishna for your more and more advancement of Krishna consciousness. I'm thinking of you and your husband in the nice devotional service you're performing, and I pray that Krishna will give you more and more intelligence to continue in this way. I will pray for your ever-increasing advancement in Krishna consciousness. I am praying to Krishna to offer you all his strength in discharge of his noble service. I pray you will live long for chanting Hare Krishna continuously. And many other examples are there. So there's examples of praying to Lord Narasimha. So the idea is if someone asks you to pray for them, or if you want to pray for others, or you ask others to pray for you, then you can take the mood of requesting. If I can be involved in more of devotional service, if that is your will. So for that, we'll go into looking at Lord Narasimha Prayers, which are often used for that purpose. If we want to pray for others, we can call on Lord Narasimha. Okay, so I've just got some random pictures of Lord Narasimha. I don't know who all these Lord Narasimha are. but just to give you some idea of how popular is this worship. We'll come to that a little bit after we've gone through the prayers also. We're praying two prayers when we sing Lord Narasimha Dev's prayers after our arti. The first one is called Narasimha Pranam. So there's 2 verses, we'll go through them one at a time. Namaste Narasimhaya, Namaste Narasimhaya, Praladadadidaya, Praladadadidaya, Hiranyakashipu Rakshaha, Hiranyakashipu Rakshaha, Shilatankanakanaya, Shilatankanakanaya. Namaha, obeisances. Te, unto you. Narasimhaya, unto Lord Narasimha. Prahlad, to Prahlad Maharaj, a lad of joy. Dayane, the giver. Hiranyakashipu, of Hiranyakashipu. Vakshaha, chest. Shila, on the stone like. Tanka, chisels. Nikalaye, whose nails. So here you'll notice that immediately we're not asking for something. Immediately we're praying, we're offering our obeisances. Namaste, Narasimhaya. O Lord Narasimha Deva, I offer obeisances unto you. Prahlada Lada Dayane, the one who's giving joy to Prahlad Maharaj. Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Shila Tankanakale, whose nails on the stone-like chest of Hiranyakashipu. Translation. I offer my obeisances to Lord Narasimha, who gives joy to Prahlad Maharaj, and whose nails are like chisels on the stone-like chest of the demon Hiranyakashipu. So there are a couple of purports where Srila Prabhupada talks about this verse. Narasimha Dev may save you. Lord Narasimha Dev, Prahlada Lada Dayane, and to Hiranyakashipu, Shila Tankana Kalaya. Both ways Krishna is protecting. And Vishnu, you see he's got 4 hands. In 2 hands he's carrying Shankha Chakra, and in 2 hands Gada Padma. The Shankha and Padma is for the devotees, and the Gada and Chakra are for the demons. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yada Yadahi Dharmasya. And then he says, Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chadushkatam, which is Bhagavad Gita 4.8. He has got 2 businesses, to give protection to the devotees and to kill the demons. But the result is one. He does good to the demons by killing him, and he does good to the devotees by giving him protection. And another purport. The meaning of this mantra, I offer my humble obeisances to Lord Narasimha Dev, who is the source of bliss to Prahlad, and Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha. His father, Hiranyakashipu, on his chest the nails of his finger are just like a chisel cutting the stone. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead is Prahlada Lada Dayane. Ahlada means pleasure. For Prahlad, Prakrishta Rupane Ahlada, Prahlad. A devotee is always being in Krishna consciousness, naturally is in blissfulness. Still more, when he meets or associates with his Lord, still more blissfulness. That is the position of the theistic devotee. Whereas for the atheist non-devotee, he's always feeling like a strike of a chisel, what you call a stone-cutting chisel, nakalaye, simply with the nails of his finger. Ito na singha parato na singho, yato yami tato na singho. Ito na singha parato na singho, Yato yato yami tato Narasimha. Bahir Narasimha Ritaye Narasimho. Narasimha Madim Saranam Prapade. Bahir Narasimho Ritaye Narasimho. Narasimha Madim Saranam Prapade. Itaha, here, Narasimha, Lord Narasimha. Parataha, there, Narasimha, Lord Narasimha. Yataha, yataha, wherever. Yami, I go. Tataha, here, Narasimha, Lord Narasimha. Bahi, externally, Narasimha, Lord Narasimha. Hridaye, in the heart, Narasimha, Lord Narasimha. Narasimham, to Lord Narasimha. Adim, the origin. Sharanam, the supreme refuge. Prapadye, I surrender. It's a translation. Lord Narasimha is here and he is also there. Wherever I go, Narasimha is there. He is in the heart and outside as well. I surrender to Lord Narasimha, the origin of all things and the supreme refuge. So here, the qualities of Lord Narasimha are being offered in prayer. The fact that Lord Narasimha is everywhere. We know in the story of the killing of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu asked his son, so where is the Lord? If you say he is everywhere, is he here in this pillow? And Prahlad Maharaj said, yes, of course he is. And then Narasimha, just to prove the words of his devotees, came out of the pillow. Okay, and then the second part of the Narasimha prayers that we are chanting is part of Dasavata Stotra from Jayadev Goswami, whose disappearance day was a couple of days ago. Tava kara kamala vare nakama bhuta swindam dalita hiranya kashipu tanavindam keshavadrita marahari rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Tava Kara Kamala Hare Nakama Pita Sindha Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanavindam Kesavatrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Tava, your Karakamalabare, upon the beautiful lotus hands, Nakam, the nails, Adbhuta Sringam, wonderfully sharp tips, Dalita, ripped apart, Hiranyakashipu Tanu, the body of the demon Hiranyakashipu, Bringam, the wasp, Keshava, O Lord Keshava, Drita Narahari Rupa, who has assumed the form of Narahari, Jaya, all glories, Jagadisha Hare, O Hari, the Lord of the universe. So Prabhupada also spoke on this verse in 1971 in Bombay. Another example can be given. Just like Prahlad Maharaj was so much stressed by his father Hiranyakashipu, and Lord Narasimha appeared. In the presence of Prahlad Maharaj, the father was killed. And then he recites the prayer. What is that prayer? Tava karakamala varena kamaputa sringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanivindam Keshavarita Narahari Rupa Jajagadisha. So, he says, from a materialistic point of view, you will see that Prahlad Maharaj, what kind of devotee he is. In the presence of his father being killed, he did not protest. So from an ordinary point of view, that looks like very sinful. If your father is attacked by somebody, is it not your duty to do something? But Prahlad Maharaj didn't, because Prahlad Maharaj knew. That is another chapter. In the later stage, he made his father liberated. But from the superficial point of view, he was present while his father was being killed. So many other things, similar examples are there, like Bali Maharaj gave up his spiritual master for Krishna's sake. Okay. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord who have assumed the form of a half lion, half man. All glories to you. With wonderfully sharp nails on your beautiful lotus hands, you have ripped apart the wasp-like body of Hiranyakashipu. So again, this is all about glorifying Lord Narasimha, not about asking for anything. So one of the reasons that we're worshipping Lord Narasimha is because it was given to us by Srila Prabhupada. But there is another reason why we are worshipping Lord Narasimha, and that is because he was very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I found 3 different leelas, there may be many more, but I found 3 significant leelas in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is remembering Lord Narasimha. And the first one is while he was still in Navadvip itself. He was at Srivas Thakur's house. So one day, the Lord ordered Srivas Thakur to read Brihad Sahasranam, the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, because he wanted to hear them at that time. As he read the 1,000 names of the Lord, in due course, the holy name of Lord Narasimha appeared. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the holy name of Lord Narasimha, he became fully absorbed in thought. So Prabhupada is giving the story from Chaitanya Mangal, Madhyakand also. Srivas Pandit was performing the Shraddha ceremony for his father, and as is customary, he was hearing the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu. At that time, Gaura Hari, Lord Chaitanya, appeared on the scene, and he also began to hear the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu with full satisfaction. When he thus heard the name of Lord Narasimha, Lord Chaitanya became absorbed in thought, and he became angry like Narasimha Prabhu in his angry mood. His eyes became red, his bodily hair stood on end, and all the parts of his body trembled, and he made a thundering sound. All of a sudden, he took up his club, and people became greatly afraid, thinking, we do not know what kind of offense we have now committed. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu adjusted his thoughts and sat on his seat. So then in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it goes on to describe, in the mood of Lord Narasimha, Lord Chaitanya ran through the city streets, club in hand, ready to kill the atheists. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu realized that everyone was being afraid of him because he was doing this, he threw his club away. But later Srivas says, he says to Srivas, when I adopted the mood of Lord Narasimha, people were very afraid, so therefore I stopped. And Srivas replied, anyone who takes your holy name vanquishes 10 million offences immediately. There was no offence in you appearing as Lord Narasimha. Rather, any man who saw you in this mood was immediately liberated from bondage. So we can see how much of a favourite Lord Narasimha was to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were reading out the whole 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, and it was on the name of Lord Narasimha that Lord Chaitanya became absorbed in thought and then took on his mood. Another time from Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Mahaprabhu was touring South India, he came to the temple known as Jiyada Narasimha. Prabhupada speaks about Jiyada Narasimha temple. It's situated about 5 miles away from Vishakhapatnam, railway station known as Singhachalam. Okay. The original deity is situated within the depths of the temple, but there is another deity, a duplicate, known as Vijayamurti. This smaller deity can be moved from the temple and taken on processions. The priests who worship belong to the Ramanuja Sampradaya, in charge of deity worship. So, upon seeing the deity of Lord Narasimhadev in the temple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his respects full obeisances by falling flat. Then, in ecstatic love, he performed various dances, chanted, and offered prayers. So, some of these prayers, one of these prayers we'll come back to again very soon. This one, Srina, 8 Madhya Leela 8.5. Srina Singha Jaina Singha Jai Jai Narasimha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa, which means all glories to Lord Narasimhadev, all glories to Lord Narasimhadev, who is the Lord of Pralad, and like a honeybee is always engaged, beholding the lotus face of the goddess of fortune. And then another one, which is in Narasimha Prayers. Ugro Pyanugra Evayam Svabhaktanam Nakeshari Keshari Vasvapotanam Anyesham Ugravikramaha. Although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Narasimhadev is very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. So this is a very nice analogy to explain those two different moods of Lord Narasimhadev. How he's so soft and kind to the devotees, in the same way that a lioness, although very ferocious to the prey that she wants to kill, is very kind to her cubs. And you can see pictures on YouTube of the lionesses playing with their cubs in a very sweet way. So in this way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited different verses from the Shastra. The priest of Lord Narasimhadev then bought garlands and remnants of Lord's food for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then again in the Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a Narasimha Dev temple in Puri, not far from Jagannath temple. So Lord Narasimha Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would stop outside that temple every day and offer prayers. On the southern side, this is the southern side of Jagannath temple, behind and above the 22 steps is the deity of Lord Narasimhadev. It is on the left as one goes up the steps towards the temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his left side towards the deity, offered obeisances to Lord Narasimhadev. And as he proceeded towards the temple, he recited the following verses again and again. Namaste Narasimhaya Praladadayini Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Shilatankanatanaye Ito Narasimha Parito Narasimho Yato Yami Tato Narasimha Bahir Narasimho Hridaye Narasimho Narasinghamadin Sharanam Prapaja. So this is where our song comes from. It comes from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Having offered obeisances to Lord Narasimhadev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Lord Jagannath. Then after that he returned to his residence, finished his noon duties and took his lunch. So these verses, you'll be reminded of some that are spoken in Mayapur when they worship Lord Narasimhadev. Before the verses that we're singing, all around the world we're singing those verses we've already recited. But in Mayapur and some other places have also copied, we have these extra verses. This one comes from the Narasimha Prayers. Jai Narasimha, Sri Narasimha, Jai Jai, Sri Narasimha, Ugram Vira Mahavishnu, Jvalantam Sarvato Mukam, Narasimham Vishanam Bhadram, Mityo Mityam Namamyaham. My obeisances unto the ferocious and powerful, the great Vishnu, the fiery one who causes the death of even death personified, who can overcome even death. And this one I just read. Sri Narasimha Jai Narasimha Jai Jai Narasimha Praladesha Jayam Padma Mukha Padma Bringa. All glories to Lord Narasimha Dev, all glories to Lord Narasimha Dev, who's the Lord of Prahlad Maharaj and a honeybee, and like a honeybee is always engaged in beholding the lotus-like face of the goddess of fortune. So these verses are commonly recited, as I said. Now, most of those verses so far have been just glorifying the Lord. But here's another example of praying to Lord Narasimha Dev in a special mood of doing well to others. And it comes from the prayers offered to the Lord by the residents of Jambudvip. So these, in Jambudvip, Prahlad Maharaj still lives, and his worshipful deity, of course, is Lord Narasimha Dev. And he teaches the praying to Lord Narasimha Dev for the benefit of people in general. So I'll recite these two verses. Very nice verses, describe our mood of worship. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namaste Tejase Avirbhava Vrajanaka Vrajadamastrakamasayam Randaya Randaya Om Grasa Grasaram Swaha Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Bhuyishta Om Krisham. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Narasimha Dev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruit of activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. So here's an example of how we can pray for Lord Narasimha Dev for the benefit of our advancement in devotional service. We understand that in this age of Kali, some of our demons are within us, our demon-like desires for fruit of activities. So rather than, we can pray also, the Narasimha Kavach prayers are praying for physical protection, but we can also pray for protection for these enemies that, enemies to our mind and our intelligence that will be stumbling blocks in our progress for devotional service. So O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruit of activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. So this fearlessness is also very important, because in the material world, we discussed yesterday when we were talking about that other prayer, how Srila Prabhupada was talking about how anxiety is part of this material world. And this anxiety comes because we don't take shelter of the one who is worthy of taking shelter of. Like Uttara was praying, you're the only one who is worthy of taking shelter of. So therefore, I'm praying for you. So praying to the Supreme Lord is that thing, only that thing that will make us fearless in this material world. And then the following verse is also very nice. Swastyastu visvasa kala prasidatam dhyayanti bhutane shivam mitodya manascha badram bhajata dadokshaje aveshyatam no matir apyahaitaki. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in the thought of him. So here is a similar mood that we had Mukunda in the Chaitanya Leela, who prayed that all the people in the universe would become free from their sinful reactions so that they could all go back to Godhead. So this is a similar one. May there be good fortune throughout the universe. May all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing Bhakti Yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. So this is why this Sri Sankirtan is so important, is because it will bring this auspiciousness throughout the whole universe. Because anyone who even hears the chanting of the Lord's holy names will start on the process of Bhakti Yoga. It's for some who are envious, it may take a very long time, but nevertheless, it's a beginning. So this lotus foot is the lotus foot of Narasimha Dev in New Vrindavan in West Virginia, America. And I recognize that lotus foot. Okay, so does anyone have any questions now? I want to go on and tell a little bit about Lord Narasimha Dev and Mayapur, because that's also important to show the mood of Lord Narasimha Dev. But first we'll stop just for a few minutes if anyone has any questions or reflections or realizations they want to share.
What is just a small question? It's like, is it like when someone asks us to pray for them, so we should pray to Narasimha Dev, like because of, as he's the merciful, like for someone's health or someone, like someone when asks, any devotee asks us to pray for them, so we should pray to Narasimha Dev.
Yeah, so we can just chant extra rounds for people. That is one way of praying for people. But otherwise, praying to Lord Narasimha Dev is very good, because we're not demanding anything. You see, all these prayers that we're offering to Lord Narasimha Dev are actually just glorifying him and his qualities. There's two types of qualities: gentleness towards his devotees and rectifying his demons by killing them. But that's also his benediction, because in that way he also purifies the demons. So it's a very good prayer, because it doesn't put us into demanding anything from God or making it seem like we want to control the course of events. So in that way, it's a very good prayer. And similarly, chanting extra rounds, if someone asks to chant extra rounds for them, you can also do that. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments or realizations? Okay, so we'll go to talk about Lord Narasimha Dev and Mayapur, because this is a wonderful story, because it also exhibits how Lord Narasimha Dev can physically protect the temple, and not just the devotees, but the temple. So this comes out of a booklet. You'll also find it online, but this is a booklet about Lord Narasimha Dev produced by Mayapur. It's based on a talk with Atma Tattva Prabhu, and I think it's actually in the words of Atma Tattva. It was Atma Tattva Prabhu who did most of the work, going and finding the deity. So on the 24th of March, 1984, at 12:20 a.m., 35 dacoits armed with weapons and bombs attacked Sri Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. They harassed the devotees and treated them with derision. But the greatest shock came when the dacoits decided to steal the deities of Srila Prabhupada and Srimati Radharani. So this time they were just in the conch building. There was just the one building. That the area downstairs where Prabhupada is now was the whole temple room. Fearlessly, the devotees challenged the attackers. How could they see Srila Prabhupada and Srimati Radharani carried away? Shots were fired, A few dacoits fell, and their plans were foiled. Srila Prabhupada was rescued, but the beautiful form of Srimati Radharani would no longer grace the altar. This incident really disturbed the minds of the devotees. Those involved in management were especially concerned to make some permanent solution. This was not the first time that devotees had faced violence and harassment in Mayapur. Bhavananda Das, who was the co-director of ISKCON Mayapur, suggested that Lord Narasimha be installed. When the dacoits had threatened the devotees in Yogapith, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati promptly installed Sri Lakshmi Narasimha. There had been no further disturbances. Other devotees in Mayapur were not so keen to follow so closely in those footsteps. The pujari must be a Naishtiki brahmachari, celibate from birth, and the worship of Lord Narasimha must be very strict and regulated. Who would be prepared to worship him? But despite all this, Bhavananda was enthusiastic. He asked Bhaktisiddhanta Das and myself to draw pictures. One day, quite spontaneously, he said that the deity's legs should be bent, ready to jump, and he should be looking around ferociously. His fingers should be curled, and mane should be coming from his head. I sketched a deity in this mood. The devotees liked it, and Pankajangri Das agreed to worship him. Radhapad Das, a wealthy devotee from Calcutta, offered to sponsor the sculpting and installing of the deity. It seemed Lord Narasimha Dev's in Mayapur would be a simple, straightforward affair. Radhapad Das promptly gave 130,000 rupees, and it was accepted that the deity would be ready in 3 months for installation. So Atmatattva went to South India to find the sculptor. He found a very famous sculptor called Stapati. Stapati not only sculpts the deities, he is also expert in temple architecture and engineering. This man was very obliging until I mentioned that the deity we wanted was Ugra Narasimha. He emphatically refused to make such a deity. I approached many sculptors, but the answer was always the same. So he made many trips over 6 months, and he still hadn't found a sculptor who would carve the deity. Radhapad Das, who's the sponsor, was very anxious to see Lord Narasimha installed. He asked me to visit the original Stapati I had seen and plead our case. This time the sculptor was a little more congenial and offered to read me a chapter from Silpa Shastra, the Vedic scripture on sculpture and temple architecture, that deals with different forms of the deities. He read aloud some verses describing Lord Narasimha. In a series of verses describing his mane, a flame-like mane, searching glance, knees bent with one foot forward ready to jump from a pillar. When he read this, I was amazed. This was exactly what we wanted. I showed him the sketch I have done. He was impressed and offered to draw an outline based on the scriptural description, which we could use as a guide in sculpting the deity. He reminded me, though, that he would not carve it himself. It took him a week to complete the sketch, and it was very impressive. I returned to Mayapur and showed the sketch to the temple authorities. Everyone wanted this same Stapati to carve the deity. So once again, he went back to South India to try and convince him. You can see how much effort goes into devotional service. How many trips has he already made to South India to try and get Lord Narasimha carved? I went straight to the house of the Stapati. I was feeling anxious. What could I do but pray to Lord Narasimha to be merciful and agree to manifest himself in our temple in Mayapur Dham? I had hardly said 2 sentences when the man very matter-of-factly said he would carve the deity. The story of how he came to this decision is interesting. The Stapati had approached his guru, the Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram, about our request. The guru's immediate reply was, "Don't do it. Your family will be destroyed." But then, after a moment's reflection, he asked, "Who asked you to carve this deity?" When he heard that it was the Hare Krishna people from Navadvip, he became very concerned. They want Ugra Narasimha? Are they aware of the implications of sculpting and installing Ugra Narasimha? Such deities were carved over 3,000 years ago by very elevated Stapatis. There is a place on the way to Mysore where there is a ferocious deity of Ugra Narasimha installed. The demon Hiranyakashipu is torn open on his lap, and his intestines are spilling out all over the altar. Once the standard of worship there was very high. There was an elephant procession and a festival every day. But gradually the worship declined. Today that place is a ghost town. The whole village is deserted. No one can live there peacefully. Is that what they want? The Stapti replied, they are very insistent. They are constantly coming to talk to me about the deity. Apparently they have some problem with dacoits. Handing his guru a sketch for the deity, he said, this is the deity they want. The guru took the sketch and looked at it knowingly. This is the Ugra category. But a deity in this particular mood is called Stanu Narasimha. He doesn't exist on this planet. Even the demigods in the heavenly planets don't worship a form like this. Yes, this deity belongs to the Ugra category. Ugra means ferocious, very angry. There are 9 forms within this category. They are all very fierce. The one they want is called Stanu Narasimha, stepping out of a pillar. Don't carve this deity. It will not be auspicious for you. I will talk with you about this later. A few nights later, the Stapati had a dream. In the dream, his guru came to him and said, for them, you carve Stanu Narasimha. The next morning, he received a hand-delivered letter from Kanchipuram. The letter was from the Shankaracharya and gave the same instructions regarding temple renovations. And there was a footnote at the bottom. For ISKCON, you can carve Stanu Narasimha. The Stapati showed me the letter and said, I have my guru's blessings. I will carve your deity. I was overwhelmed with joy. So they agreed that the deity would be ready after 6 months. Read it all again. So he's still doing more and more trips. And now every time he goes to South India, he's still finding trouble. After 4 peaceful months in the Holy Dham, I decided to go to South India and purchase some heavy brass paraphernalia required for Narasimha Dev worship and collect the deity. The trip was well organized and trouble-free until I visited the Stapati. I explained to him all the paraphernalia required for the worship and had been purchased, and I'd come to collect the deity. And he looked at me as if I'd lost my senses, and he said, what deity? I haven't even found a suitable stone yet. So Advaita said, but you told me it would be ready in 6 months. And the Stapati said, I will keep my promise. 6 months after I find the stone, the deity will be ready for installation. So he's explaining the stone. In South India, they like to make a deity. They call it living stone. He's giving the descriptions here. The scriptures tell us that only a stone that has life can be used to make a Vishnu deity. When you hit 7 points of the stone slab, each makes the sound mentioned in the scriptures, then the stone may be suitable. But the second test to indicate whether a stone is suitable, a living stone, is that there is a bug that eats granite. It eats from one side to the other and leaves a complete trail visible. And that if it passes those 2 tests, then you can carve it. Now, just of course, a note for us is because we have many deities, and we don't all go around looking for living stones. And that is because we have a different mood for deity worship. We're worshipping the deity, understanding that actually Krishna is everywhere. Like Prahlad Maharaj understood, Lord Vishnu was everywhere, including in the pillar. So we understand Krishna is everywhere. Prabhupada laughed at the Mayavadis and the impersonalists who said that Krishna couldn't be in the deity. He said, but Krishna is in every single atom. How could he not be in a deity? But so the Lord agrees to enter the deity, and when we want to worship him, so we don't have to go through so much effort. Even the Shastras describe, I think, 7 or 8 types of deities that we can worship. There's a deity made of earth, like clay. There's a deity made of stone, like earth and stone. There's a deity made of metal. There is a deity made of paint. Even a picture can be a deity. I think it's either 7 or 8 types of deity that you can have. And we can worship all of them by the process that's given in the Shastras. So we don't have to look for stone that's living. But this Stapati was in the South Indian tradition, so he wanted to get the right stone. Okay, so then the conversation continues. I was amazed and a little anxious. The devotees in Mayapur were expecting the arrival of the deity soon. How was I going to explain the living stone search to them? Maybe they would decide to make a Narasimha from marble. I tried to lighten the subject by discussing Prahlad Maharaj Murti with the Stapati. Please forgive me, but I forgot to tell you last time that we also want Prahlad Murti. We want to worship Prahlad Narasimha. What do you think? The Stapati replied, I don't think that's possible. I looked at him incredulously, not sure what to say. He smiled and continued. For you want everything done exactly according to the scriptures. Your Narasimha will be 4 foot high. Comparatively speaking, that will make Prahlad Maharaj the size of an amoeba. So if you've seen Lord Narasimha in South India, the pillar that Lord Narasimha came out of is absolutely huge. It's like a mountain. So like that, Lord Narasimha was very big compared to the size of Prahlad Maharaj. So Atma Tattva says, but we want Prahlad Maharaj 1 foot high. Fine, the Stapati replied. But that means your Lord Narasimha will be about 120 feet high. We argued back and forth. Finally, the Stapati signed and agreed to make Prahlad Maharaj 1 foot tall. So after 2 months, there was still no development. And then another month or so later, he returned again, and finally the Stapati found the stone. So then the Stapati became a transformed man, and every day he would just be looking at the slab. He hadn't even drawn anything for a whole week. And he started just to make an outline. All he'd been able to do was make the shape of the slab into a rectangle. So the managers in Mayapur were becoming impatient. And so he kept going backwards and forwards to South India. It took the Stapati a little over 12 months to finish the deity. But when he completed the work, he didn't immediately inform me, but decided to visit some friends for a few days. It was the monsoon season, and there were few visitors, and he felt it safe to lock up Lord Narasimha in his thatched shed. 2 days later, his neighbours ran to inform him that the thatched shed was on fire. There was heavy rain and everything was wet, but the coconut tree roof had caught fire. He ran to the scene to find Lord Narasimha untouched, but the shed burned to ashes. Immediately he phoned me and said, now come and take your deity. He is burning up everything. He's made it clear he wants to go now. So then Atma Tattva himself also travelled to South India with the truck, half filled it with sand, and got the deity. The deity weighed 1 ton. He hadn't realized that deities would be so heavy. He travelled back with him, got all the papers to cross all the state borders. And okay, here's another interesting part. Usually the Stapati comes on the installation day to go to the deity room and carve the eyes of the deity. This is called Netra Nimilanam, opening the eyes. It was an exceptional case that our Narasimha Stapati had already carved the eyes. He had not only carved the eyes, he had also done prana pratishta, installing the life force, a little puja and arti. I'm sure that is why all the papers were prepared so obligingly, and transporting the Supreme Lord was so easily. He was already present. So the installation of Lord Narasimha was from the 28th to 30th of July 1986. Okay, so this book I can also share with you, because it's a little booklet in PDF. little PDF booklet that I can also share with you, because aside from this story in the booklet, there's lots of other stories about how Lord Narasimha Dev reciprocating with the devotees who come to see him in Mayapur. And so now, aside from praying to Lord Narasimha Dev, now offering Lord Narasimha Yajnas have also become very popular. If you want particular protection for somebody who's undergoing some trouble, you can arrange to sponsor a Narasimha Yajna in Mayapur as well. It's just come to my mind. Something I forgot to mention yesterday when we were talking about Gurvastakam was the reason why Gurvastakam is the first thing we do in the morning. First thing that we do in the morning because it's so important to worship the Guru. To keep the Guru in our mind, to keep his qualities in our mind, and to keep remembering that we should be serving him. So then Lord Narasimha Prayers in a normal temple program come to us 3 times a day. We chant them after Mangal Arati, we chant them after the Rajbhog Arati, and we chant them after the evening Gora Arati. So that gives us our reminder of Lord Narasimha Dev for our protection, morning, noon and night. So now I don't know actually what the time is because my computer and my phone say 2 different times. So can you tell me what the time is? Anybody?
9:20.
How much time is left?
It's 9:20.
Okay, that's what my computer says. But my computer says 9:20, but my phone says it's only 9:10. Okay, so then it's almost time to finish. So you get time before your next class. Does anyone have any reflections or questions to ask?
It was a very nice class today, Mataji. We had a lot of, you gave us a lot of things about nursing, a lot of information. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you for all coming. I've very much enjoyed researching for these classes because it's also made my meditation on our daily prayers very much more deeper. I've appreciated it very much. I hope you like it as much as I do because I found it very good. And tomorrow we're going to be looking at Tulsi Prayers, which is a very, very special prayer for our devotional service. It's about praying for pure devotional service. So I've got some looking more at the nectar of devotion about the mood of prayers and types of prayers and the different components of prayers, how we can make up prayers with different elements, including the glorification, but including to how we actually approach the Lord and request something, the mood of request. Okay, so if nobody else has anything to add, we can finish the class now and you can take a little break before you. Next you have Prabhupada Leela meeting, right? You can take a little break before then.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Had you taken the attendance in the beginning, Mataji?
No, I'm leaving that up to the VIHE because actually on Zoom they can do that automatically.
Okay,
they can go. Yeah, they can go for a report, and they can even tell if you're. According to what I was watching, they can even tell if you're watching or not. Like if you just put your phone there and walk off and do something else, they have some way of working out if you're actually watching or not as well. I don't know how they do that. That's a bit beyond me. But they do a complete. The Zoom people can do a complete report of who's there and how long they're there for, and whether they're watching or not. Because Zoom is being used for classrooms where attendance is very important. Your attendance to a certain extent will show in your enthusiasm when you write your answers to the test, whether you've taken it on board and thought deeply about it. So I don't need to worry too much about that. The VIG can keep track of that. And your enthusiasm will show in the way you answer your test questions. And then I'll know.
Thank you, Mataji. Actually, I joined 4 minutes late, so I thought I missed the attendance or whatnot.
No,
Okay, thank you.
they've stopped asking me for attendance, and I'm happy about that because it's just, for me, it's a waste of time, and they can do it another way.
Yes, yes, you're right, Mataji.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, we'll end this class today.